Right. All right. We are back for another one. It is currently 1 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 12th of August, 2025. Welcome back to the live show. It is your boy Genesis, and you are currently tuned into the Genesis show. And with that being said, we're going to do a recap of the 45th and now the 47th President of the United States, the Commander in Chief, President Donald J. Trump, uh, press conference that he had yesterday at the press briefing room, the White House, with Pam Bundy, uh, Attorney General, and Kash Patel, the FBI Director, Janine Pirro, of course, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. We're gonna check that out real fast. It's about, say, an hour plus. We're gonna check that out real fast, and then we're gonna check out subsequently what the Washington D.C. mayor uh, said concerning what happened right here in this room with the President of the United States. But stay tuned. Be nice in the chat. God is the greatest. America is the greatest country on the face of the earth. God made it so. It is just facts. All right. So be nice. All right. Be nice in the comment section. Doesn't matter if you are a Democrat or a Republican. Really doesn't matter. What matters is you love the United States and you are blessed to be here. Okay. I'm going to tell you straight up. You are blessed to be in the United States. And with that being said, enjoy the Genesis show. Here we go.
Wow. I've been up here a lot. I've never seen a crowd like this. I think we need a ballroom, and that's happening. It's going to be a beautiful ballroom. This is really a lot of people, most I've ever seen in this room. And we're here for a very serious purpose, very serious purpose. Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States. I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. Just like we did on our southern border. Nobody comes through our southern border anymore. 3 months in a row, we had zero. I don't know if that's right, but the people that do the work It's a very liberal group of people, actually, and they actually said 0 for the last 3 months. Nobody thought a thing like that was possible. And, when you take a look at numbers, I just saw some charts. These are different cities throughout the world. Red is, okay, the red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think the people in this room, if you wrote correctly, you'd see, look at the kind of numbers we have. D.C., 41 per 100,000, number one that we can find anywhere in the world. Other cities are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that. Is that where you want to live? The reporters of the world? Juvenile offenders and crimes against persons, as they say. It's getting worse. Not getting better, it's getting worse. And we had a recent indication. There was a story about a man who was just left. He quit because he was asked to do phony numbers on crime. And we're going to look into that. I think Pam is going to be looking into that. But he was asked by the city, I guess, that we don't want to show the real numbers. Let me do numbers so it looks like it's going down. Not going down. And under Biden, it was a disaster. And nobody did anything about it. We're going to do things about it like you wouldn't believe. Every American has a constitutional right to be able to access and petition their government in safety, and countless federal officials and employees likewise have the right to carry out their jobs in peace without being shot. As you know, I lost a very good person a while ago, was shot waiting for his wife. He was in the car. They robbed his car. They shot him. They killed him like it was nothing to it. She was walking to the car. It's a horror show. This issue directly impacts the functioning of the federal government and is a threat to America, really. It's a threat to our country. We have other cities also that are bad, very bad. You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say. Days ago, a former member of the DOJ staff was savagely beaten by a band of roving thugs after defending a young woman from an attempted carjacking. He was left dripping in blood. He thought he was dead, with a broken nose and concussion. Can't believe that he's alive. He can't believe it. In June, a 21-year-old congressional intern was tragically killed after being hit by a stray bullet in a drive-by shooting. A former Trump administration official named Mike Gill, fantastic person, was murdered last year in cold blood in a carjacking blocks away from the White House. We all knew him. Great person. Waiting for his wife as she was walking to the car. A Democrat congressman was also carjacked at gunpoint not far from the Capitol. And in 2023, an aide to Senator Rand Paul was stabbed in the chest and head by a demented lunatic as he walked down the street, just absolutely for no reason. Horrifically, last July 4th weekend, a 3-year-old girl was shot in the head and killed while sitting in a car near the Capitol. It's becoming a situation of complete and total lawlessness. And we're getting rid of the slums, too. We have slums here. We're getting rid of them. I know it's not politically correct. You'll say, oh, so terrible. No, we're getting rid of the slums where they live. Caravans of mass youth rampage through city streets at all times of the day. There are ATVs, motorbikes. They travel pretty well. Entire neighborhoods are now under emergency curfews. Just this past weekend, gunfire went through, and you saw that, the Navy Yard. I saw it this morning. They saw that they fought back against law. See, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them, because it's the only language they understand. But they fought back against law enforcement last night. And they're not going to be fighting back long, because I've instructed them and told them whatever happens, they love to spit in the face of the police. As the police are standing up there in uniform, they're standing and they're screaming at them an inch away from their face. And then they start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit. And they can hit real hard. It's a disgusting thing. I've watched that for years, for 3-4 years. I've watched them. The police are standing, and they're told, don't do anything under any search. So and you can see they want to get at it. And they're standing there, and people are spitting in their face, and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want. This dire public safety crisis stems directly from the abject failures of the city's local leadership. The radical left city council adopted no cash bail. By the way, every place in the country where you have no cash bail is a disaster. That's what started the problem in New York, and they don't change it. They don't want to change it. That's what started it in Chicago. I mean, bad politicians started it, bad leadership started it, but that was the one thing that's central: no cash bail. Somebody murders somebody and they're out on no cash bail before the day is out. We're going to end that in Chicago. We're going to change the statute. I spoke with Pam and Todd and everybody. We're going to change the statute, and I'm going to have to get the Republicans to vote, because the Democrats are weak on crime, totally weak on crime. They don't know why. They want to stop because they get mugged too. But we're going to change no cash bail. We're going to change the statute and get rid of some of the other things. And we'll count on the Republicans in Congress and Senate to vote. We have the majority, so we'll vote. We don't have a big majority, but we've gotten everything, including the great, big, beautiful bill. Got that done, and that's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to people in this country. They're starting to figure it out, how good it is. Biggest tax cut in history. So many things. But we'll be able to get that done. So, Todd, if you and Pam can draw up things working with the people, I'll get it passed. We'll get it passed with the Republicans. Probably won't get, think of this, probably won't get one Democrat vote, because they have no idea what they're doing. That's why they want men playing in women's sports. That's why they want transgender for everybody transgender. And they just got walloped in an election, in a landslide, and they haven't changed one thing. I saw the other day the certain gentleman who was a very well-known politician, Democrat, was fighting like hell that men should be allowed to play in women's sport. They just don't get it. They said it's an 80-20 issue, and I think it's a 97-3 issue. And I don't know who the three are. I've never heard nobody's ever come up to me, sir, you have to let men play in women's sports. You have to do it, sir. Nobody's ever approached me. I don't know where this issue even comes from. Never seen anything like it. But they turned our nation's capital into a sanctuary jurisdiction. That's the other thing. We have to get rid of sanctuary cities as quickly as possible. We're going to do it, too. We have to. Because it's sanctuary for criminals. Releasing illegal alien gang members onto the streets in 2022, nearly 70% of criminals arrested in Washington went unprosecuted. That's not going to happen with the group we have standing aside and standing behind me. And at the Metropolitan Police Department, it's now reached a small number relatively compared to what it was, but it's thousands of people. You know, we have thousands of police. I was told today, sir, they want more police. I heard a number, 3,500 police. That's a lot of police. 3,500. I thought they were going to say, we only have 30 policemen or women. He said, we have 3,500. We need more. You don't need more. That's so many. I never heard. That's like an army. How could you need more than 3,000? It just happened 2 minutes ago. Sir, they've requested more police. Oh, what do they have? About 3,500. I said, 3,500? This is not a big area. It's ridiculous. What you need is rules and regulations, and you need the right people to implement them. And we have the right people here, that I can tell you. Look at the border. Biden said there's nothing you can do. Kamala was the border czar. She never called one of the Border Patrol agents who are great. ICE is great. Never spoke to anybody. Never went there. But she was the border czar. And everybody said it was impossible to fix. I fixed it in 3 months. No, really. I fixed it the first week, but really fixed it over the last couple of months. And I mean, literally to a point where, as I said, 0 illegals entering our country in the last 90 days. Pretty amazing. It's time for dramatic action. We're going to do the same thing over here. It's going to be a very safe city very soon. We're not looking to just take years, because a lot of people die in years. And we've got incredible people in this country, except we have to allow them to do their job. And that we will deliver like nobody's ever delivered before. I actually think it's easy. You know, if you're competent, it's easy. If you're incompetent, it's impossible. But I'm very competent. Last week, my administration surged 500 federal agents into the district, including from the FBI, ATF, DEA, Park Police, the U.S. Marshal Service, the Secret Service, and the Department of Homeland Security. You know, a lot of nations, they don't have anything like that. They got some police, and they're rough police. They don't have DEA, ATF, FBI, Park Police, the U.S. Marshal Service, Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. They got some police, but they're rough police, and they do their job. They don't have crime. We're not going to have crime either. They made dozens of arrests, and that's what starts to happen. Again, cashless bail. Watch what we do with that. Today, we're formally declaring a public safety emergency. This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was, with graffiti all over the walls. It's another part of it, by the way, because we're talking about safety, but we're also talking about beautification. We have the most beautiful, potentially, capital in the world. We always had. But people come from Iowa, they come from Indiana, they come and then they get mugged. Not going to happen. Keep coming, because by the time you get your trip set, it's going to be safe again, and it's going to be clean very quickly. We're going to replace the medians that are falling down all over the roads. We're going to replace the potholes. We're going to put a nice new coat of asphalt over the top. No, we don't have to rip the road out and spend 7 years building a new road because they cut everything. Because some designers said, well, we need 1/4 of an inch more turn for safety reasons. No, we're going to do it right. We're going to get it done quickly. So today we're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia. And Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor, our new DEA administrator, who's one of the top in the country. He better be Terry. If you're not, I'm going to get rid of you so fast. Terry Cole. Terry, thanks. Very good. We just got him. Most highly recommended person. And you'll be designated as the interim federal commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department. Okay? And you run them tough. They're good. You have a lot of good people. You have people that shouldn't be there. You also have people that shouldn't be there. They got in there because of woke. But you have a lot of great police. And those people are the ones that want to help you. This city will no longer be a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals. We will have full, seamless, integrated cooperation at all levels of law enforcement, and we'll deploy officers across the district with an overwhelming presence. You'll have more police, and you'll be so happy because you'll be safe when you walk down the street. You're going to see police, or you're going to see FBI agents. We're going to have a lot of agents on the streets. You're going to have a lot of essentially military, and we will bring in the military if it's needed, by the way. We're going to have National Guard. But Pete Hegseth will tell you about it. We will bring in the military if needed. People say, oh, that's so terrible. He's going to bring in, it's been used many times over the years. I don't think we'll need it. I think we've got so many great people, including the people that are in the police department with proper leadership. They'll immediately begin massive enforcement operations targeting known gangs, drug dealers, and criminal networks to get them the hell off the street, maybe get them out of the country, because a lot of them came into our country illegally. They shouldn't have been allowed in. They come from Venezuela. They come from all over the world. We're going to get them the hell out. They won't be here long. But some of these people, a lot of them, are homegrown criminals. And these are bad people. These are rough people. And this is just a list of some of the people that were given to me today that were criminals removed from the D.C. streets this weekend. They were rough and tough. But we're rougher and tougher. Look at these people here. Nothing, you know. They're not going to be your local school teacher. Look at this guy. He has killed people numerous times. They're not going to be an asset. They will never be an asset to society. I don't care. I know we all want to say, oh, they're going to be rehabbed. It's not going to be rehabbed. I'm going to ask Doug Burgum to come up and say a couple of words because he's in charge, as you know. He's Interior, but he's in charge of the U.S. Park Police. And I've heard so many great things about the Park Police. They're proud of it. They've been there for a long time. Their families oftentimes grow into the roles. They love the country. They love this area. So, Doug, could you say a few words, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the U.S. Park Police, this is the oldest federal police force in the nation. They were formed in 1791 by none other than President George Washington. They've got the awesome responsibility of protecting our nation's most sacred monuments. The National Mall, Washington Monument, Jefferson Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, Statue of Liberty, and out west, the Presidio and the Golden Gate area. These folks have tens of millions of visitors a year, the kind of people that President Trump's talking about that come from around the country and around the world to see our sacred and learn about our history and our sacred monuments. They've been doing a fantastic job, but they are so pleased, the rank and file, that President Trump is now allowing them to enforce the law. As those of you that live in the city may know, that the circles and the triangle parks that are spread throughout D.C. are actually federal park property. So the U.S. Park Police also have responsibility for that. These became littered with homeless camps under the Biden administration. All of you saw that. Since President Trump's executive order on March 27th, making D.C. safe and beautiful again, the U.S. Park Police have removed over 70 homeless camps. And President Trump also talked about beautification. They're stopping and enforcing the laws against graffiti on our monuments. They've removed over 80 specific attacks against our history with graffiti on our monuments. So they continue to do a great job, whether it's in their vehicles, on foot, or on the mounted police that you see around the National Mall. And President Trump, they thank you. The rank and file is so happy to be enforcing the law again. Thank you for your leadership, and they're excited about the announcement you're making today.
Thank you. Very good. Great job you're doing. Thank you very much. Pete, could you say something about the military, if you would?
Well, Mr. President, it's an honor to be here. And at your direction this morning, we've mobilized the D.C. National Guard. It'll be operationalized by the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, through the D.C. Guard. You will see them flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming week. At your direction as well, sir, there are other units we are prepared to bring in. Other National Guard units, other specialized units. They will be strong, they will be tough, and they will stand with their law enforcement partners. This is nothing new for DOD. As the President noted, at the border, we've got 10,000 troops down there who've been operating in defense cooperation areas, defense zones, where there's zero illegal crossings because of troops on strikers scanning the border. We've been protecting other people's borders for 20 years. It's about time we protect our own, and we're working with ICE and CBP. In Los Angeles, we did the same thing. Working with the California National Guard, working with ICE officers. ICE officers deserve to do their job and not be attacked. We will work alongside all DC police and federal law enforcement to ensure this city is safe, this city is beautiful, And as I always say about President Trump to the troops, he has their back. And my message to the National Guard and federal law enforcement in Washington is, we have your back as well. Be tough, be strong. We're right behind you. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm going to ask Pam, because she's now, as you heard me say, she's really in charge of a lot of what we're talking about. She's done an incredible job. People are going to start to see the fruits of her labor. And Pam, maybe you could say a few words about what we're talking about here.
Sure, President. Let me be crystal clear. Crime in D.C. is ending and ending today. We are going to use every power we have to fight criminals here. President, thank you for caring about our capital. Families come here every summer. Our museums are free. We have the National Zoo. We have the National Gallery. DC should be a place where everyone can come and feel safe. Behind me and to my side, we have some of the best career law enforcement and prosecutors in the country who are ready to take this on. As the president said, Terry Cole is going to be supervising the Metro Police Department. Gaddy Serralta, our U.S. Marshal, is going to be supervising command and control, the entire operation. Our Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and I will be working with them closely, along with our great FBI Director, Kash Patel. Kash is going to talk to you in a minute about what we did in Virginia recently with Governor Youngkin. Many of you covered that, and it was tremendously successful. Not only that, our secret weapon here in D.C. is U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, one of the toughest prosecutors and a former judge, and she is going to be talking about juvenile crime, how it's out of control here, and what she's going to do to fight back. No more crime rampant in our beautiful capital. No more teenage girls beating a disabled man to death. No more of that. No more drive-bys. We're going to do everything we can. And working with the ATF Director Driscoll and Commander of the Army, we're going to all work together. That's what we all do in this room. We work together, we fight. Do not underestimate one person in this room. We're going to make DC beautiful. We're going to make DC safe again. One other thing, just at the wharf a few days ago, the area of the wharf, Terry Cole reached out to me, not even nightfall, on the weekend, where so many families and tourists go. A guy's overdosing from fentanyl on a park bench in the middle of families around. They administer Narcan and saved his life. No more of that. The President of the United States is going to clean up D.C., and we're going to be there to help him, and we're going to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Cash, talk about Northern Virginia, if you would. Northern Virginia, we had a big success.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for your leadership, Deputy Attorney General, and the rest of our interagency partners. Mr. President, the following is what happens when you let good cops be cops, and I just want to highlight that before I get into Northern Virginia. This year alone, under President Trump's administration, we've had over 4,000 child victims identified and found. That's a 33% increase from the same time period last year. 33% increase. We've had a seizure of 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl up to this date. That is a 25% increase since the same time period last year. And just to put it in perspective, 1,500 kilograms of fentanyl is enough to kill 115 million Americans. 115 million Americans. Cops are getting after it. The FBI has arrested 19,000 people this year alone. Thanks to President Trump's administrations, that's double than where we were this time last year. And we have also arrested 1,600 people who have committed violent acts against children. 270 of them are human traffickers of children. Mr. President, this is what happens when you have great leadership at the Attorney General with Pam Bondi, your administration's priority of protecting the homeland and protecting American citizens and protecting our children, and the murder rates are plummeting. We are now able to report that the murder rate is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history, in modern recorded U.S. history, thanks to this team behind me and President Trump's priorities. And how do we do it? And what are we going to bring to D.C.? What we did in Northern Virginia, thanks to Terry Cole and Governor Youngkin and the team, we stood up a task force out in my Northern Virginia field office, and we said, let's let good cops be cops. Let's get them the intelligence and what they need, and let's get the red tape out of their way, and let's get DOJ partnered up with us to bring great prosecutions, and that's exactly what we did. In 1 month, we arrested 545 violent felons. 545 in the state of Virginia, thanks to Governor Youngkin's partnership. And that simplicity in law enforcement is what's coming to Washington, D.C. When you let good cops be cops, when you give them the intel they need, when you work with our Homeland Security Task Force, when you work with Terry and Gaddy and I go way back to Miami, these guys are great leaders of the respective departments and law enforcement capacities. And when you have the DOJ and President Trump driving behind this mission, we are going to clean up Washington, D.C., and we're going to do it the right way, the lawful way, and we're going to make sure Washington, D.C. is safe again. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you very much. Good job. Thank you, Cash. So the process begins right now. It actually started over the weekend, and we confronted a lot of very bad people. But it's going to be something that will be pretty amazing to you as you watch it. And I think most of you say it's a beautiful thing to do it right. We're going to be removing homeless encampments from all over our parks, our beautiful, beautiful parks, which now a lot of people can't walk on. They're very dirty, we've got a lot of problems. But we've already started that. We're moving the encampments away, trying to take care of people. Some of those people, we don't know how they even got there. Some of those people are from different countries, different parts of the world. Nobody knows who they are. They have no idea, but they're there. We're getting rid of the people from underpasses and public spaces from all over the city. There are many places that they can go, and we're going to help them as much as you can help. But they'll not be allowed to turn our capital into a wasteland for the world to see. The Metropolitan Police Department and the federal authorities will be supported in the effort, a really big effort, the 800 DC National Guardsmen that we'll put on, and much more if necessary, much more. You remember I said, I offered 10,000 once. Remember I said to a certain person, a person who I thought always was highly overrated, not very competent, but I said, if you need them, we'll give you 10,000 of the military or the National Guard. They turned me down. But if necessary, we're going to move service members directly to joining the Guardsmen, and that'll take place very rapidly, and that'll be done in conjunction with Pam and with Pete and everybody else. Washington, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest, and most beautiful cities anywhere in the world, and we're going to make it that. We're going to make it safe. We're going to make it smart. We're going to make it beautiful, so beautiful. Some of the buildings, we're going to add to it. You see what we've done at the White House. White House is a whole different building. I do that in my part-time because it's a natural instinct as a real estate person. I was very good at that, and I was very good at fixing things up. I like fixing things up. You see what's happening. The marble floors are being reinstalled, renovated, fixed. The whole place is becoming very beautiful. We're going to be adding a magnificent ballroom, most beautiful ballroom, I think, anywhere. We need it. I would have certainly loved to have had it today. I think we would have filled it up. A lot of you are standing outside, can't get in this room. I have never seen the room like this, which tells me that you want to talk about, I mean, this was a D.C. news conference. It tells me that you want to talk about crime in D.C. and beautification of D.C., but I'm going to put that's easy. And I think, frankly, fixing the crime with the pros, fixing the crime is easy, too. A person who I've known for a long time, and she's been incredible. She was a fantastic, one of the best ever district attorneys in New York. She was in Westchester, and she became a judge, very successful judge. And then she went into showbiz because she was such a good DA and such a good judge, tough judge, but fair, always fair. Nobody ever complained about that, but she was tough. And because of that and her reputation, she went into showbiz. So a lot of people don't, they think of Janine as showbiz. Actually, showbiz was not her thing. And she did great. She was on, along with a couple of other of my friends, on the #1 show. And she did great, but this is what she loves doing. This is really her baby. What she's going to do is going to be incredible. And I'd like to introduce to speak for just a few seconds on what she has in mind, what she wants to do. We're going to be appointing some judges. You know, we have some open spots, and we're going to take people because the judges are letting killers out. They're just saying, go, that's okay, don't worry about it. So we're putting some, Pam recommended, Todd recommended, some judges that are great. Janine recommended. Janine's given me 3 great candidates already. We have about 10 open spots, and we can probably create some more. We need them. Janine, would you say a few words, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam Attorney General, and to all my partners here. We all want the same thing. We all want a safe city. We want a safe capital. We want to be able to bring our families here. We want to be able to come and enjoy the history that makes this place great. And unfortunately, we are not in that position right now. And Mr. President, I want to thank you for taking the step that we need right now to make criminals understand that they are not going to get away with it anymore. And I'm not going to stand here and go over and over the cases. But what I can tell you is this. I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest. Intent to kill? I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college. We need to go after the DC Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens. And it starts today. But it's not going to end today because the president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. And my final note is this. These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the State Attorney General, Brian Schwab. I did a poster of the young man from Doge who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids because I can't arrest them. I can't prosecute them. They go to family court and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Janine.
You're welcome.
Great job. Thank you. If I could, I just signed some executive orders. I'd like to have Will please come up and we'll let the people know what we signed. Do you want to put them down?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
A short while ago in the Oval Office, President Trump signed 2 crucial executive actions to deal with the emergency crime conditions we currently face in the District of Columbia. The first of these was an executive order, as President Trump said before, invoking his powers under Section 40 of the Home Rule Act to take federal control of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Along with that executive order, President Trump signed the statutorily required notification letters to Mayor Bowser and to the relevant House and Senate committee leaders. The second major executive action that President Trump signed was a presidential memorandum directing the Secretary of Defense to utilize the National Guard to address the conditions we see on our streets here in D.C. It also authorized the Secretary of Defense to work with state governors to utilize their National Guard units if necessary as well. These are bold, decisive steps intended to combat the out-of-control crime conditions we've seen on D.C.'s streets for far too long. And I, for one, am deeply proud to be part of an administration that's finally coming to terms with these issues, sir.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
Thank you. So, just to conclude, Washington, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest, most beautiful places anywhere in the world. It was years ago. We had one problem that was a pretty big problem. The radical left got out of control and they started trying to rip down statues, and I said, let's go pass a law real fast. We're going to do it real fast, but we were blocked by the Democrats who do not want safety. Nobody gets it. I don't get it. They don't get it because they can't get votes. I don't know how they can win an election with this, but they don't want safety. And I found an old statute, very old, early 1900s, that said if you so much as touch or even think about destroying a statue or a monument in Washington, D.C., you go to jail for 10 years with no probation, no anything. In other words, slightly different than we have today. Today we have cashless bail. There you get jailed 10 years. No curtailed sentence, 10 years. And we took it out. Nobody used it. It was never used because, you know, it was harsh. And you remember they started to rip down the statue of Abraham Lincoln. I said, that's a tough one to rip down. He was pretty good, Pam. I think he was pretty good. When the ropes started going around Abraham Lincoln to pull him down, Andrew Jackson, others, and they were heading to the Jefferson Memorial, Thomas Jefferson. They're going to do a big number there. I said, it's time. And I signed that statute immediately. We had it updated. We made it use the same language, all passed by Congress. And I announced it's 10 years in jail, no probation, no anything, 10 years, no curtail sentence if you touch, so much as touch a statue in Washington, D.C. And it was an amazing sight, beautiful sight. Everybody just left. The ropes were hanging around Andrew Jackson, and there were 2 ropes around Abraham Lincoln. They left the rope. But everybody just left. And that was the last problem we ever had. You know, that was the last problem that we ever had with the statues. They were going wild. And somebody came to me and said, sir, in 1910, I don't want to give you an exact because you'll say, Donald Trump gave us wrong dates around like early on. You know, if I'm slightly off, they make you sound a little bad. So I won't put myself in that position. I won't put you in that position. Because I think everybody agrees with what we're doing today. But when I signed that thing, it was like a miracle. Everybody left. They were gone. They were starting to march down. They started the march toward Thomas Jefferson. And I figured he was always going to be safe. But they found something with him, and they found something with Abraham Lincoln. And even in the name George Washington in California, numerous places changed the name of George Washington High School and various other places. They took George Washington's name. This was a sick, woke culture that I think we've largely ended. And a lot of those people that were woke are now turning out to be the opposite. I won't go so far as to say MAGA. It's a very special category. But they've gotten out of that. But we have people that love this country, and they love this really beautiful capital. It is. I flew over it the other day, and I said, what a beautiful place. But if there's crime all over the streets, when you get there, it doesn't look so beautiful. But we're going to make it beautiful again. We're going to fix it with crime, and we're going to also, as we're doing that, we're going to start doing things that we know how to do, that I know how to do better than anybody, I guess, because of my experience from previous life. But not only are we stopping the crime, we're going to clean up the trash and the graffiti and the grime and the dirt and the broken marble panels and all of the things they've done to hurt this city. And we're going to restore the city back to the gleaming capital that everybody wants it to be. It's going to be something very special. All of these people are really tough. Could I shake your hand, Gaddy, please? You're going to be so important here. You're going to be that guy. I hope I don't have to fire him in 2 weeks because he's too soft. I don't think he's too soft. If I do, I will, though. Is it okay? If you're soft, weak, and pathetic, like so many people, I will fire you so fast. You're not going to have to worry about that. No, I think you're going to do a fantastic job. And everybody in this room, they may not express it, but they all want that to happen. You know, they want to be safe, and they have families too. So it's an honor to have such a large group. I've done this for years now, hard to believe. I've never seen this room so packed. In fact, I'm sure it's a violation of every fire code. but we'll let you stay anyway. You're taking a chance. And with that, we'll say maybe if you could. Oh, wow. We could be here all day long. If we could keep the first questions perhaps to this subject, and then we'll go on to a few others. Please.
Mr. President, thank you so much. Can you talk about how personal of an issue this is? You talked about flying over the Washington Monument and seeing the pride of what D.C. is, and do you believe that the status of the city, the cleanliness, the way that crime is low, is a direct reflection on how the country is run?
Yeah, I do. I think the Capitol, look, everyone comes here. They're all coming. All the leaders, they're all wanting to come. And I say it, I've said it again, but I'm really just quoting other leaders from NATO, from the Middle East, King of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE. I was over there. We brought back $5.1 trillion of investment into our country. But a month and a half ago, I was at NATO. We had a great thing. They agreed to put up 5% instead of 2%. 2% they didn't pay, 5% is already paid. We had a great meeting, and they all said the same thing. They said our country was dead. They thought our country was gone. 1 year ago, they said your country was dead. And now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world. We do. We have the hottest country in the world right now. The tariffs have helped. It's given us not only the money, it's billions, trillions of dollars of money, but it gives us great power over enemies. We solved 5 wars with Pakistan and India. We just solved one. Azerbaijan and, as you know, and Armenia. A war was raging for 37 years. And the 2 leaders got up and they said, we never thought this would be solved. Russia tried to solve it. They all tried to solve it. It was a very tough situation, but we got it done. And I said to the 2 men, I said, are you guys friends? And they had a hard time. They've been killing each other for 37 years, right? The one was there 5 years, one was there for 22 years. He said, my whole life I've been fighting this war, and you got it solved. But we did many of those. We did in the Congo and Rwanda. That's been going on for 30 years. 8 to 9 million people killed that they know of, but it was raging, and we got that solved. We got a lot of them done. It's a great honor. But you want to have, when they come, the leaders come to our country to sign documents that the war is over or whatever, or for other reasons. They come for trade. And you want them to come through so beautifully. You ride down those roads, everything should be perfect. You shouldn't have medians falling down into the roadway. Median, the metal things that are always. Somebody had a great lobbyist, because I've never seen them look good. I've been looking at those things with the little, right? They're always broken and bad, but here they're really bad. And we're going to either put new or fix it, and it's not expensive. It's not really expensive. And we're going to fix our roads a little bit. We're going to clean up our sidewalks. You have countries where every Saturday the people go out and they wash their sidewalks in front of their stores or their houses. They scrub their sidewalks. So we aren't quite at that level yet, I don't think, Gaddy. We're not quite there yet, but maybe we will. They go out and they scrub. I think it's so beautiful to hear that and to see those stories. But we're going to make it clean. But just to finish with your question, it's a very, very strong reflection of our country. And when they see a bad city, my father always used to tell me, I had a wonderful father, very smart, and he used to say, son, when you walk into a restaurant and you see a dirty front door, don't go in, because if the front door is dirty, the kitchen's dirty also. Same thing with the Capitol. If our Capitol's dirty, our whole country is dirty, and they don't respect us. So it's a very good question, actually.
Mr. President, sorry. Question for you on the specific issue. Do you expect more cities to follow DC's path if this goes through? So the idea is that Chicago, LA, San Francisco, would they expect similar action to what we've seen in DC? And the other question, sir, there's reporting that the administration is going to reclassify marijuana. Would that send mixed messages that if marijuana is okay, some drugs are okay, but we're trying to clean up crime? How do they go hand in hand?
We're only looking at that. That's early, but somebody reported it, which is fine. We're looking at it. Some people like it. Some people hate it. Some people hate the whole concept of marijuana because if it does bad for the children, it does bad for people that are older than children. But we're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination over the next few weeks. And that determination hopefully will be the right one. It's a very complicated subject, the subject of marijuana. I've heard great things having to do with medical, and I've had bad things having to do with just about everything else. But medical and, for pain and various things, I've heard some pretty good things. But for other things, I've heard some pretty bad things. The other part of your question, I mean, we're just going to see what happens with it all. We're going to have a tremendous success in what we're doing. Other cities are hopefully watching this. They're all watching, just like everyone's watching here. They're all watching, and maybe they'll clean up, and maybe they'll do this and get rid of the cashless bail thing and all of the things that caused the problem. I mean, if you go back, this whole thing with cashless bail is a disaster. So many problems came that we never had before. So they're watching us today, and if they don't learn their lesson, if they haven't studied us properly, because we're going to be very successful. I have zero doubt about that. It's going to be. It's a question of will it be really fast, like the border. Everyone said, they used to say, Biden used to say, I need legislation. I didn't get any legislation. I called up our people, and we did a great job. Tom Homan was great. As you know, our secretary did a great job. They did a great job. There's no games. They didn't play games. And we're going to have the same thing here. But then I'm going to look at New York in a little while. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's see. It's going to go pretty quickly. And if we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, which is a disaster. We have a mayor there who's totally incompetent. He's an incompetent man. And we have an incompetent governor there. Pritzker's an incompetent. His family threw him out of the business, and he ran for governor. And now I understand he wants to be president. But I noticed he lost a little weight, so maybe he has a chance. You never know what happens. But Pritzker's a gross incompetent guy, thrown out of the family business. But when I look at Chicago and I look at L.A., if we didn't go to L.A. 3 months ago, L.A. would be burning like the part that didn't burn. If he would have allowed the water to come down, which I told him about in my first term, I said, you're going to have problems, let it come down. We actually sent in our military to have the water come down into L.A. They still didn't want it to come down after the fires. But that was it. We have it coming down. But hopefully L.A. is watching. That mayor also. The city's burning. They lost like 25,000 homes. I went there the day after the fire. You were there, and I saw people standing in front of a burned down home. Their homes were incinerated. They weren't like, even the steel was literally, it was all warped and literally disintegrated because of the winds and the flame and the whole thing, like a blowtorch. They were standing on this beautiful day, maybe a couple of days after. We gave it a little time because what they had suffered. Almost 25,000 homes. And you see what's happening now. They didn't give their permits. I went to a town hall meeting. I said, we're going to get you the federal permits, which are much harder. Almost immediately, Lee Zeldin is a star. He did an incredible job. They have all their federal permits. They don't have their city permits. And the mayor said to me, we think we could have them in 2 years. I was walking down the street, and I met with firemen and police. And I was saying hello to many people that were standing in front of their homes with yellow tape. You can't go in. You can't go onto the lot. And those people wanted to start rebuilding their homes then and there. And the mayor said, we should be able to get them the permits within 2 years. I said, that's a shame. 2 years? Are you kidding? I'm going to get them the federal permit like almost immediately. 2 years. And she drew it back. Well, maybe 1 year. The place was booing her out of the place. They don't have their permits to build their homes. And now they're talking about this is among the most beautiful areas in the country. Now they're talking about putting low-income housing there. Can you believe this? I love low-income housing. I made money with low-income housing. I built low-income housing. I know more about low-income housing and luxury housing. I know about everything real estate. They want to replace some of those homes with low-income housing. They haven't gotten their permits yet. We've gotten all the federal permits, which are much tougher to get, and it was done almost immediately through Lee Zeldin and Federal Environmental. And I watched the other day, those people are angry. And now, they had they loved that area. They loved the whole big area, different places, but they loved it. It was all luxury stuff and beautiful stuff, and some wasn't that luxury, but the level of love for that neighborhood, their neighborhoods, was incredible. And you know what? I watch people on television, they want to go, they want to leave. They've lost their spirit, they've lost their heart, because the mayor's incompetent, and Gavin Newsom is incompetent. Got a good line of bullshit, but that's about it. He's incompetent. And you have Los Angeles is, you know, it's amazing. You know, I called, the first thing I did, I got the Olympics to go there. I was the one that got it. And by a rare thing that happened, I'll be the president. I was very upset because I got the Olympics there, and I said I won't be president when it comes, but bad things happened, and illegal things happened, really illegal things happened. Now it turns out one good thing was I'm going to be the president for the Olympics for 2050, for 250, which is going to be fantastic, and also for the World Cup. So we have a lot of good things, and I hope 250 is going to be, the 250th anniversary is going to be the best. But when I looked at those people, and I saw last night on television that they still don't have their permits, it's a disgrace what's happened in Los Angeles.
Yeah, thank you. The China tariff deadline is tonight. Do you plan to extend that?
We'll see what happens. China's been, we've been dealing very nicely with China, as you probably have heard. They have tremendous tariffs that they're paying to the United States of America. And we'll see what happens. They've been dealing quite nicely. The relationship is very good with President Xi and myself.
President, you mentioned your upcoming meeting with President Putin. Can you tell us what you hope to get out of that and whether you'll consider inviting President Zelensky to join?
So you have to understand, this is a war that should have never happened. This is a war that wouldn't have happened if I were president. It would have never happened. It was the apple of his eye. I got along very well with President Putin. But if you look, under President Bush, they took a lot of territory. Under President Obama, they took a lot of territory. Under Biden, they essentially took the whole thing. You know, it's just a question of time. Under Trump, you know what they took? Nothing. Nothing. I was the one that said, you can't build your pipeline. That was half built. I came in, I stopped the pipeline. It's called Nord Stream 2. Nobody knows that, you know. Nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2. You might have not even heard it. Biggest pipeline in the world. I stopped it. I was not a friend of Russia, but I got along well with Putin. It's always good to get along with other countries if possible, but that doesn't mean you roll over like Biden did. Biden came in and he immediately approved the pipeline. I couldn't believe it. Then they say Trump wasn't tough on Russia. I wasn't tough. I was the toughest. Putin said, if you're not tough, I would hate like hell to see you. I stopped the biggest economic development job, the biggest job that Russia had ever built. I stopped it. It was dead. And this low IQ president came in and he let them build a pipeline and supply oil and gas all over Europe, you know. So this is really a feel-out meeting a little bit. And President Putin invited me to get involved. He wants to get involved. I believe he wants to get it over with. Now, I've said that a few times, and I've been disappointed because I'd have like a great call with him, and then missiles would be lobbed into Kiev or some other place, and you'd have 60 people laying on a road dying. I said, that's cold, that's cold. But it's a violent war. 5,000 to 7,000 people a week are dying. And you know, there's nobody from here. They're all Russian and Ukrainian people, and some people from the cities, much smaller number, but still, those missiles do damage and they kill a lot of people, but mostly soldiers. And they're young soldiers, although in the case of Ukraine, they're getting much older. They're drafting 60-year-olds now. It's a terrible thing to witness, and I think I have an obligation. Look, this is Joe Biden's war. This is not my war. I made a deal with NATO a month ago. You covered it very accurately, actually. We don't pay anything anymore. You know, we're not paying anything. They are buying things from us, and NATO is paying us. I got it raised from 2% of GDP to 5%. And they're paying us for everything that we send. We're not paying. But Biden approved $350 billion. Europe has spent $100 billion. The money that's been spent and the death is incredible. It's the worst thing that's happened, by far the worst that's happened since World War II. So I'm going in to speak to Vladimir Putin And I'm going to be telling him, you got to end this war. You got to end it. And he wasn't going to mess with me. This war would have never happened. You know, we had a discussion about it one time, and we never had that discussion again. Would have never happened. And when the election was rigged, and then Biden took office, which was barely took office, the auto pen took office, bad things started happening. Bad things, stupid things were said. And it ended up in a war. And you know, and I don't believe this will happen anymore because I have that pretty well covered. This could end up in a third world war. This could have been a third world war. I don't think that's going to happen now. But I thought it was very respectful that the president of Russia is coming to our country as opposed to us going to his country or even a third party place. But I think we'll have constructive conversations. Then after that meeting, immediately, maybe as I'm flying out, maybe as I'm leaving the room, I'll be calling the European leaders who I get along with very well. And, you know, I have a great relationship, I think, with all of them. And I get along with Zelensky, but, you know, I disagree with what he's done. Very, very severely disagree. This is a war that should have never happened, wouldn't have happened. But I'll be speaking to Zelensky. The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me. I'll be there if they need. But I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. So there's good and there's bad. But it's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven, and there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land, and the word that they will use is, you know, they make changes. We're going to change the lines, the battle lines. Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine. But they've taken some very prime territory. They've taken largely ocean. You know, in real estate, we call it oceanfront property. That's always the most valuable property. If you're in a lake, a river, or an ocean, it's always the best property. Well, Ukraine, a lot of people don't know that Ukraine was largely 1,000 miles of ocean. That's gone. Other than one small area, Odessa, it's a small area. There's just a little bit of water left. So I'm going to go and see the parameters. Now, I may leave and say, good luck. And that'll be the end. I may say this is not going to be settled. I mean, there are those that believe that Putin wanted all of Ukraine. I happen to be one of them, by the way. I think if it weren't for me, he would not be even talking to anybody else right now. But I'm going to meet with him. We're going to see what the parameters are. I'm then going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders. Right after the meeting, yeah. And I'm going to tell them what kind of a deal. I'm not going to make a deal. It's not up to me to make a deal. I think a deal should be made for both. I think Russia has to get back into building their country. It's a massive country. I think they have 11 time zones, if you can believe it. It's a massive, it's by far, from the standpoint of land, it's by far the largest. They have tremendous potential in Russia to do well. They're not doing well. Their economy is not doing well right now because it's been very well disturbed by this. It doesn't help when the President of the United States tells their largest or second largest oil buyer that we're putting a 50% tariff on you if you buy oil from Russia. That was a big blow. And then they say, gee, he wasn't so tough. Nobody else would have done that. And I haven't stopped there. I mean, look, I was all set to do things far bigger than that, but I got a call that they'd like to meet, and I'm going to see what they want to meet about. I'd like to see a ceasefire. I'd like to see the best deal that could be made for both parties. You know, it takes two to tango, right? So ultimately, I'll have a meeting next week. I had a great relationship with him, considering the fact that, you know, I was not nice to him because of the pipeline. I ended the pipeline. I also gave the javelins. Do you ever hear of a javelin? Javelin is called a tank buster. They say that Obama gave them sheets and I gave them javelins. If it weren't for me, all those tanks that were destroyed at the first days of the war because the tanks got stuck in the mud. Some commander made a better. They would have been in Kiev in 4 hours, going down the highway. But a Russian general made a brilliant decision to go through the farmland instead. And they just had torrential rains, and the rains were so bad, and it was mud, and those tanks got stuck in the mud. I don't know who that general is, but knowing Vladimir, he's probably not around any longer because all those tanks were stuck in the mud, and they went along with the javelins. I gave them the javelins. You know that, right? I gave them javelins. They gave them sheets. But I'm going to meet with President Putin, and we're going to see what he has in mind. And if it's a fair deal, I'll reveal it to the European Union leaders and to the NATO leaders and also to President Zelensky. I think out of respect, I'll call him first. And then I'll call them after. And I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting. Or I may say, we can make a deal.
If not,
I will tell you this. I've seen a poll coming out of Ukraine. 88% of the people would like to see a deal made. And if you go back 3 years, everybody was gung-ho for war. Everybody's gung-ho for war until you have it. It's an amazing thing. I had it with a couple of countries where I couldn't get a deal done with one particular country. And I just couldn't. The guy's great. He's a friend of mine. Great. Good leader. Tough as hell. I couldn't get the deal done. And then he went into war for a short period of time. You know where I'm talking about. First term. And it was nasty. Guys being killed all over the place. And he went through 1 week of war, and I was able to get the deal done. He said, this is nasty. Yes, please.
Yeah, just to follow up on what you were saying there. First of all, Volodymyr Zelensky is not invited on Friday?
He wasn't a part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. He's been there for 3.5 years. Nothing happened.
And what is the definition?
I mean, do you want somebody that's been doing this for 3.5 years? What's the definition of a good deal? I'll tell you after I hear what the deal is. Because there could be many definitions. You're talking about a very large and complex situation. Now, I tell you, the war that I just settled with Azerbaijan and with, as you know, in Armenia was almost as complex as this one, having to do with routes, trade.
Meeting on Friday with Vladimir Putin.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made.
How will you know that?
Because that's what I do. I make deals.
Yeah,
please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, one about China, one about Russia, if I could. On China, your administration agreed to send the most advanced or advanced NVIDIA and AMD chips.
No, obsolete. No.
Obsolete chip. Well, and then 15% of the profits
You mean the 20s? No. This is an old chip that China already has. And I deal with Jensen, who's a great guy, and NVIDIA. The chip that we're talking about, the H20, it's an old chip. China already has it in a different form, different name, but they have it. Or they have a combination of two will make up for it and even then some. Now Jensen Jensen's a very brilliant guy, and Jensen also has a new chip, the Blackwell. Do you know what the Blackwell is? The Blackwell is super duper advanced. I wouldn't make a deal with that, although it's possible I'd make a deal, a somewhat enhanced in a negative way Blackwell. In other words, take 30% to 50% off of it. But that's the latest and the greatest in the world. Nobody has it. They won't have it for 5 years. But the H20 is obsolete. It's one of those things, but it still has a market. So I said, listen, I want 20% if I'm going to approve this for you, for the country, for our country, for the U.S. I don't want it myself. Every time I say like 747, I want, yeah, for the Air Force. So I just wanted, so when I say I want 20, I want for the country. I only care about the country. I don't care about myself. And he said, would you make it 15? So we negotiate a little deal. So he's selling a essentially old chip that Huawei has a similar chip, a chip that does the same thing. And I said, good, if I'm going to give it to you, because they have a, they have a stopper, what we call a stopper, not allowed to do it. It's really known as a restrictive covenant. And I said, if I'm going to do that, I want you to pay us as a country something, because I'm giving you a release. I released them only from the H-20. Now, on the Blackwell, I think he's coming to see me again about that. But that will be a unenhanced version of the big one. Like, I don't know if you know it, we will sometimes sell fighter jets to a country, and we'll give them 20% less than we have. Do you know what I mean, right? That's the same.
So on Russia, do you see a time, Mr. President, when there could be normal trade between the U.S. and Russia? Should your meeting go well? Should there be peace?
I do, yeah. Russia has a very valuable piece of land. If Vladimir Putin would go toward business instead of toward war, you know, it's a warring nation. That's what they do. They fight a lot of wars. A friend of mine said Russia's tough because they just keep on fighting. They beat Hitler, so did we, and they beat Napoleon. You know, they've been doing this for a long time. I asked a question to a very, very smart man that some people like and some people don't like. Viktor Orban, right, from Hungary, the head of Hungary, and he's in that same area and knows the two countries very well. I said, this was before Biden didn't do anything to get us out of it. He could have gotten us out of that. It would have never happened. I said, so can Russia be beaten by Ukraine? He looked at me like, what a stupid question. He said, Russia's a massive country, and they win their country and they win their life through wars. They fight wars. That's what they do. He said, China beats you with trade. Russia beats you with war. That was a very interesting statement. China's not beating us with trade, not when I'm in charge, but they were beating Biden with trade, but they never beat us with trade. Don't forget, China had to pay $400 billion worth of tariffs when I was last time. That was last time. And if we didn't have COVID, all of this stuff we would be loaded. We're finding hundreds of billions of dollars of cash is pouring into our country now because of tariffs. And all we're doing is we're doing what they do to us. It's so beautiful to see it. They found last month, as you saw, $25 billion of excess cash flow. They're saying, where did it come from? I said, I'll tell you where it came from. It came from a place called tariffs, and we're doing very well. We're really doing well. But I expect to have a meeting with Putin that I think it'll be good, but it might be bad. And I'm here for one reason, to get rid of a war that somebody else started. Should have never happened. And if I could end it, great. Complex war, a lot of bad blood, But Zelensky's been there for 3.5 years. So if you put him in a room, now I will say this, ultimately I'm going to put the two of them in a room. I'll be there or I won't be there. And I think it'll get solved. Yeah, please be happy.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Excuse me, I'm going to suggest, because do you have any other questions on DC? Because I don't want them to be, wait. These are incredible people. I don't want them to be standing up here on subjects that, does anybody have a question of them? And then you guys can leave. Okay, a question, Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right.
And by the way, this is only on DC, and then they're going to leave because it's unfair to have them stand up here all day long.
I agree.
Brian.
I've got two questions for you. First, about DC. This is personal for me as well. Last year, I was robbed on the streets by one of these teenage thugs. Had a gun, got away with it. Let's talk about the effort that between law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges, because it's a recycling belt. Like, these kids go, they don't fear the police. They know it. If you talk about how we've got to get these judges and put these kids behind bars, right. Adult crimes deserve adult penalties. And my second question, I'll after you answer that, please.
Do you want me to answer it?
Whoever wants to take it.
Okay. It's real. Do you want me to answer it? Go ahead. Here's the problem. Assuming that they're 17 years, older than 17 years old, I can get the case. If they're under 18 years of age, I can only get the case if it's murder, rob one, rape, or even if they shoot a gun but don't kill you, I can't get it. So the law has to be changed. As the president said, cashless bail. That has to be changed. All right, then, even assuming I get the case, I get jurisdiction, I get a conviction, the DC Council has given the judges the ability to give probation on shootings. And so then it's up to them. All of these things, the Youth Rehabilitation Incarceration Reduction Act, and now they want to seal records. So if we work hard, we get a conviction, they want to wipe it out. So that needs all to be changed.
Okay, Mr. Question.
Pam, would you answer that also?
Yeah, and just back to that topic, let's be clear though, we're going to charge them and we're going to track every single thing they do throughout every step of the court process and report back to you and let all of you know what's happening to them, because the people who are prosecuting them, the judges who are trying them, they also need to be held accountable.
Mr. President, you also made a comment. You made a comment in your walk out here. This is the most people we've ever seen in this briefing.
I've never seen
ever, right?
I've never seen any. Where's Caroline? Where's my superstar? Caroline. Is Caroline in the back? Where's Caroline? Come here, Caroline. Come here, Caroline. Come here. Is she doing a good job, by the way? Come here, Caroline. Is this the largest crowd that you've ever seen?
This is definitely the most packed briefing, and I think all of you would agree. I think it's why we need to build a ballroom.
Mr. President, I have a better idea.
All right, Brian, go ahead.
My question is this. You're building the big, beautiful ballroom.
Yeah.
Could we build a big, beautiful briefing room, updated technology,
No.
more seats?
I don't want to do that. I don't want you to be comfortable. So no, I don't want to make life comfortable. So look. Let's just do this. Let's do this. It's going to be a big thing. We're going to Russia. That's going to be a big deal. What happens, happens. I'll let you know what happens. You'll be the first to know. I'll be calling the European leaders. I'm going with totally, I mean, we have a lot of talks. They're great people. They're great leaders, actually, and they want to get back. Honestly, as one of them said, I've OD'd on trying to settle Ukraine. They've OD'd, meaning they've overdosed on the settlement of Ukraine. Not a nice expression, but boy, is it accurate. They're tired of it. They want to get back to spending money on their countries. You know, Biden gave them $350 billion. Europe gave $100 billion. It should be much more than that. Shouldn't have been that kind of, they should have had equalization, but they didn't. But you know what? Still a lot of money. They want to get back to building their own countries. They really want it resolved. My relationship with the European leaders, as you saw, is extremely good. It's perfect. It's beautiful. Wait. And we're going to try, I'll be in touch with them. I have 5 of them call me. You think it's easy. There are a lot of European leaders, but they rely on me, very much rely on me. If it wasn't for me, this thing would never get solved until the last person breathing is dead.
Would you talk to them before?
Mr. President.
Yeah, I did. I'm talking to them right now. So I'm talking to the European leaders. I'll be talking to President Zelensky. I'm going to get everybody's ideas. I go into that thing fully loaded right up there, and we're going to see what happens. Now, I think one of 2 things is going to happen. It's going to be a good meeting, and we'll go a step further. We'll get it done. I'd like to see a ceasefire very, very quickly. Very quick. I'd like to see it immediately, but I'd like to see it very quickly. And we're going to be dealing with the European leaders, and we're going to be dealing with President Zelensky, and hopefully we're going to have a great success. As far as this, what we did today, and I think you were here for D.C. more so than even Russia, because Russia will be, we have a couple of days to go, but the Russia is going to be very interesting. But to me, what is very exciting, and we're going to take back our capital. We're going to make it beautiful again, but we're going to make it, more importantly, safe again. It's going to be so safe. It's going to be a model. And then we'll look at other cities also. But other cities are studying what we're doing. And you have some capable people in other cities. They can do it too. But we have a great group of professionals. We're going to have a safe, beautiful capital, and it's going to happen very quickly. Thank you all. Thank you all very much.
Madam Attorney General.
the Justice Department appeal the Epstein decision today, Mr. President?
How long will the takeover of DC Police last?
Yeah.
Hey, Caroline.
We'll see you guys
Look at
tomorrow.
it.
We'll have another briefing.
Neighborhoods will see the National Guard on their streets.
All of them.
Look at them. They cannot do anything without trying to get this man to answer questions. Go ask Joe Biden. All right, here we go. So, Washington, D.C. mayor actually replies the president of the United States. Of course, I don't know, maybe it's just a political move, but listen to her right here.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. We are here at the John A. Wilson Building, our city hall, to address today's announcement from the White House. So I'll have a short statement, and then we'll be able to take a few questions. So let me start by saying this. Washington, D.C. is a beautiful city, magnificent city. We're home to 700,000 Washingtonians. We welcome millions of visitors every year from around our nation and around the world. We have the nation's premier park system, fantastic public schools, including a free and robust pre-K program starting at age 3. We have a tremendous public transportation system, and we have hardworking people here who are raising families, starting businesses, and hiring workers. So it's very important to me that for all who live here and visit here, just know how beautiful our city is and how proud we are of all that we've accomplished here. We're unique in other ways as well. Though we pay taxes, in fact, we pay more than most states per capita. We're not a state. We don't control the DC National Guard. We don't have senators or full autonomy. Limited home rule gives the federal government the ability to intrude on our autonomy in many ways. I've said before, and I'll repeat, that I believe that the president's view of DC is shaped by his COVID era experience during his first term. And it is true that those were more challenging times related to some issues. It is also true that we experienced a crime spike post-COVID, but we worked quickly to put laws in place and tactics that got violent offenders off our streets and gave our police officers more tools, which is why we have seen a huge decrease in crime because of those efforts. We have been able to reverse that 2023 crime spike. This year, crime isn't just down from 2023, it's also down from 2019, before the pandemic, and we're at a 30-year violent crime low. We're not satisfied. We haven't taken our foot off the gas, and we continue to look for ways to make our city safer. We know, however, as most have heard from the president's press conference, that he has prerogatives in DC unlike anywhere else in the country, including his authority given by our home rule charter to require the mayor, to require me to supply services of the Metropolitan Police Department. And he also has control and the ability to deploy the National Guard. But let me be clear, as our home rule charter is also clear, and the president's executive order restates. Chief Pamela Smith is the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and its 3,100 members work under her direction. The Home Rule Charter requires the mayor to provide the services of MPD during special conditions of an emergency, and we will follow the law. Though there's a question about the subjectivity of that declaration. In fact, the chief has already provided a high-level liaison and point of contact with the federal government and made those initial contacts. The executive order is also clear that the president has delegated his authority to make requests of us to Attorney General Pam Bondi. I have reached out to Attorney General Bondi and hope to schedule a meeting soon. My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised. I can say to DC residents that we will continue to operate our government in a way that makes you proud. We will balance our budgets. We will deploy our services. Our kids are going to start school on August 25th. And we will work with the federal government to do the things that they should do for our city, including making sure that we have the judges that we need, including making sure that all federal parks are supported, not just with law enforcement, but with other clean and safe activities, and including making sure that our economy is supported by rational federal actions as it relates to the federal workforce, federal workers, and federal property in the District of Columbia. So with that, I want to ask Chief Smith to talk about her interactions with the federal forces, federal police and law enforcement that have been engaged in the district over the last several days, and the strategy that she thinks would be important while we have additional federal police officers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm Pamela Smith, the Chief of Police of the Metropolitan Police Department. And as the Mayor stated, we have a responsibility to support the executive order. And one of the roles that I have is to ensure that we work very collaboratively with our federal partners. I know that most of us know in this room, and those of you that are watching on television, that the efforts of the federal law enforcement officers began in our city on Thursday night. I met with the director of the U.S. Marshal, who has been at that point overseeing the operational component of how the federal resources will be allocated and deployed around our city. With that conversation, it was very, very important for me to ensure that not only do we work collaboratively with our federal partners, but we offer up areas across our city where we can work with them in areas where we know that we want to reduce crime. And so that was the effort on yesterday. We spent roughly about an hour just kind of planning and talking through what that's going to look like. On the heels of the announcement from the president today regarding the executive order and my directive from the mayor is that we will begin more intense planning efforts after I leave this press conference. I've also met with one of the other liaisons that have been assigned to work with the U.S. Marshal, along with myself, regarding the efforts around the city for how we will allocate resources. What I will say is this: our relationship with our federal partners is not new. We do this on a daily basis. We are very, very, very much in tune to having federal law enforcement officers working with us on our Capital Area Regional Task Force. Our federal partners work with us, especially on some some of our warrant executions. They work very, very closely with us, with our Violent Crime Suppression Division, and it is my intent and my police department's intent to continue those efforts. What you will see is an enhanced presence. The second thing that's really important to me, and I'm speaking directly to our community, is that we have a relationship with our community that is very important to us, our community members. And so having our Metropolitan Police Department working alongside of our federal partners who have come into the city to really help us assess and deal with the crime, that some of the crime spikes that we have, we will work alongside them. But intentionally, we want to make sure that our community understands that we are there. We're going to be boots on the ground. If you see something, again, say something. We value those relationships. Our community members, and I want to say thank you for all the work that you've done with the Metropolitan Police Department up to this point. Those relationships are very, very important to us, and we want to continue to build upon that and continue to enhance that. I'll turn it back over to Mayor Bowser now.
Okay, we'll take a few questions, and I'm joined by members of my public safety team, including Deputy Mayor Appiah and Chief John Donnelly. Yes, please identify yourself.
Mayor Bowser, it's Campbell Robertson of the New York Times. Do you think this was inevitable, or do you think there are things that the city could have done with the city council to prevent this type of cover?
This is, I don't know. I can't answer that question, and I think that's a question that you're familiar with the rhetoric about the city and how long it goes back. And we also know that we're not experiencing a spike in crime, but a decrease in crime. Yep.
Mayor Tom Sherwood, WAMU Radio. You and the chief are talking about partnerships to the federal partners who are coming in. The president is talking about a takeover of the city's police department. Where does the chief fit in with Terry Cole, who's the new federal commissioner of the DC Police Department?
Nothing about our organizational chart has changed, and nothing in the executive order would indicate otherwise. So the chief of police reports through the deputy mayor to the mayor of the District of Columbia, and the two people I think that were identified in the presser report to Attorney General Bondi. The executive order makes clear that all requests for MPD services, the president delegates to Attorney General Bondi.
So Terry Cole?
I don't recall the names. Yes.
The Metropolitan Police Department? Where does he fit in that?
That's a question for the Attorney General, I think. Yep.
Mayor, to what extent are you planning to cooperate in this new framework, or is the city planning anything to prevent this from happening, including any legal efforts?
Well, I think all legal, I think you probably saw the Attorney General for the district, Brian Schwab's a statement about reviewing all legal matters, and I think those matters are under review. The plain language, however, of the Home Rule Charter indicates that there is a declared emergency. It allows the president, it authorizes the president to make those requests. And it says the mayor shall comply with those requests. So, yeah.
Marielle with DC News Now. Are there any concerns that, with this rhetoric, then we have NPD, the National Guard, possible other law enforcement agencies on the ground, that there will be confusion about who's in charge, who these officers answer to, and how people should respond if approached by any of these law enforcement?
Well, we should note, and we have been advised, and we will continue to make this clear that this is needed in our city, that all law enforcement be identifiable by a uniform, a badge, a jacket, so that people know that they are law enforcement. And the chief, in her coordination with the the kind of the command on the federal side will make clear kind of how the protocols for response. And if there's any additional information we need to get out to the public, we will. But the main point is this: everybody should follow the law, the police and the community. And that's the case now. It was the case last week, and it was the case the week before that. So nothing has changed about that. Yep.
Hi, Lionel Donovan, WUSA. Madam, would you be able to respond to the statement that came out from DC Police Union? They've come out recently saying that they stand with the president and that they have also said that crime is out of control. They're also calling for the president to go even further and repeal some of the legislation that DC Council passed in 2012.
I'm afraid I haven't seen that statement yet, so I don't want to comment on it. We have, worked very closely with the DC Police Union. Some issues they've advanced, I've totally agreed with. Others I haven't. One thing that we are squarely supportive of is making sure that our department can recruit more officers and get to a number that I think we need. We've worked cooperatively with them on recruitment and retention activities, on some other changes to the law that were very objectionable to the union and our members, and we will continue to do that. Yeah.
Peace and blessings, Madam Mayor. So, in what way, if any, does this change your strategy in terms of your relationship with the president? You've been pretty cooperative, pretty diplomatic, but he's saying one thing about crime, you're stating facts, and he's still infringing on your role as mayor. So, as far as your relationship and your strategy, what do you intend to do as far as, engaging with them at this point?
Well, we engage with all officials that impact the district, and that includes the president. So I don't expect that would change from our part.
But as far as, and if I may follow up.
Sure.
Are you going to go what some might consider a bit harder in pushing back against what he's trying to do? Will your tenor change or intensify?
My tenor will be appropriate for what I think is important for the district. And what's important for the district is that we can take care of our citizens. And if people are concerned about a president's ability to have the MPD police department be responsive to the Department of Justice, the time to address that is when we're talking about statehood for DC. If people are concerned about the president being able to move the National Guard into our city, the time to do that would have been when the Congress had a bill that it could have given control of the DC National Guard to DC. So there are things that when a city is not a state and not fully autonomous and doesn't have senators, that the federal government can do. Yeah.
Jim Kuzengera from the Boston Globe. Just to follow on his question, you at times in President Trump's first term were more confrontational with him, especially in 2020. You've tried to be more cooperative this time. Any second thoughts about that approach? And are you planning any sort of defiance, symbolic or whatever, in light of this?
Well, I would refer you to the law. Home Rule Charter, he referred to it. I would refer you to the executive order. And so everything that we have said maintains my authority given by the Home Rule Charter. Yep.
Josh Chapin, Channel 7. I just want to be clear also that this ramp up, this emergency we're talking about is a brief period, like a 30-day period. Am I right?
The charter gives him the ability to do it for 30 days, yes.
So that means cooperating with the, whatever he wants to do.
Well, it means that we follow the law, and that the MPD follows the law as well as all of the federal officials who are here. It's also important and we will do this in our communications with them, understand what they're looking to see. So the fact that we have more law enforcement and presence in neighborhoods, that could not, that may be positive if people are, if it's a positive action. So that's what the executive order says. Yeah, Mark.
A couple quick questions. One, do you know, will the National Guard be armed?
I don't know.
And then, what if the Attorney General directs the Chief of Police to redirect sources to do something that you and the Chief disagree with? For instance, redirect resources from east of the river to the federal enclave or something like that. Will you comply with, you say you're going to follow the law, you say you want to be cooperative. What if you get a directive from the White House or the Attorney General that you just steadfastly don't agree with and think it's the wrong move and would jeopardize public safety in other neighborhoods? Will you comply?
I don't have any reason to think that at this point, Mark, so I don't want to speculate about that. The executive order, as is the Home Rule Charter, is pretty clear that the directives have to be, the requests have to be related to federal purposes.
And then can I ask, the president threatened to use not just the National Guard, but military, to bring the United States military, federal troops into the District of Columbia if needed. Can you respond to that threat? I mean, we're in uncharted waters already. A lot of people are seeing this as the first step in an assault on home rule, which the president has threatened. He's been making these threats since last year, and now he's carrying through with them. There's no reason to believe he won't go further. What do you say to the president about his threats to bring the military, not just the National Guard, but the military in?
We don't, I think I speak for all Americans, we don't believe it's legal to use the American military against American citizens on American soil. I'm not a lawyer, and but I think that's a fairly widely held fact. And so, but we've seen them move, I think, the active military into California. So it's a question. We've seen active military on the borders of DC some years ago, and we don't believe that our military should be used against American citizens. Yes.
Mayor Bowser, can you talk a little bit about the communication that you did receive before this morning? Did you know what this announcement was going to be before today? And can you just talk about the communication writ large before today? And secondarily, what do you say to DC residents who wanted to hear more from you, specifically in the last 5 days, being forthright, speaking to press and media? Can you just talk about...
DC residents know I'm forthright. That's not a question. DC residents know that, and this press corps should know I speak to you all the time. So you should know that as well. And your question was, when I did not know that the request of MPD would be made. I believed that they would announce that they were going to call up the National Guard. I had one brief phone call related to the National Guard issue over the weekend.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Can you tell us...
Can you identify yourself?
Ryan Todd from CNN.
Okay.
Can you tell us what your main challenges are going to be with Chief Smith and the DC Police working with federal officials? And are you concerned that any federal official overseeing the DC Police Department is not going to know the city as well as Chief Smith and your officers?
Chief Smith oversees the MPD. And all of the requests and coordination for the federal request. I don't really have a doubt that is going to, among those officials who are law enforcement officials who have experience working together, I don't have a big concern about that communication and coordination happening. Who hasn't? Yep.
Hi, Emma Huber with the Washington Post. During the news conference this morning, President Trump spoke about how he wanted to empower DC police to hit back harder. Are you aware of any changes in the works to MPD's use of force policies? And does that kind of rhetoric, how do you feel about that kind of rhetoric? Our
police officers are highly professional, well-trained officers that we support with training throughout their careers. We're proud of where our department has come from in terms of their level of professionalism. So they're trained in constitutional policing, and that is our expectation. Yes. Hold on, you passed the question one more.
Owen Hayes, NBC News, just to follow up on that a bit.
Yeah.
So will they still be fully subject to local regulations when it comes to use of force, body cameras while under federal control, MPD officers?
MPD reports reports to the chief of police, and they are subject to DC and local laws as well as federal laws.
And that will continue even under this plan?
Yes. Yes.
Emiliana Wood, News Nation. You said earlier that they did not tell you about this announcement before it happened today. Did the White House or the president bring up their concerns with crime before last week?
The president talks about crime all the time.
Specifically in DC?
Yes. Have you not heard the president from the campaign trail? In every conversation I had with him, we're always briefing the president on our progress. In fact, my first meeting with him after he was elected the second time, we went over the crime trends. We went over how we're seeing decreases. So the president is read in on our efforts. Who has an? Yep, over here.
Ashraf Khalil with the Associated Press. A lot of this seems to be perceptions of what constitutes an emergency. The White House and the administration says there's an obvious emergency. Your administration, with numbers, and the council says there is not an emergency here. How do you solve that? Is there an arbitration option? Where does it go from here? Because it feels like it's. Do you agree that it comes down to what constitutes an emergency and what's next?
Well, what I would point you to is the Home Rule Charter that gives the president the ability to determine the conditions of an emergency. Now, we could contest that, but the authority is pretty broad. And so, if you wanted to say the most outrageous thing, one might say, well, I won't say that. It could be something very small. I'm not saying that that's what he's doing, but it could be. And if he deems it and he puts the meat around it and the argument around what he thinks is an emergency. When we think of emergencies, it usually involves surges in crime or crime that's not being responsive, or tools that we have that we can't use in the normal course. That's what, when we use an emergency, that's what it's for. Yep.
Oren Altenheim, ABC News National. Wanted to see if you could respond directly to some of what the president said this morning. Do you agree or have any thoughts on the picture he's painting? He said that there are, quote, bloodthirsty criminals, end quote, or roving mobs of wild youth, end quote. He also said that DC police can do whatever the hell they want, end quote. Are you okay with that? What does that mean? Do you have any response to him or the White House talking about the DC crime stats?
I think I've already addressed all of those questions. Anything else? Yep.
Scott Gelman with WTOP. You described, this morning was described as a federal takeover of MPD. It sounds like you're describing this as Chief Smith is still in charge and everything will run through the department. What will this look like on a day-to-day basis as it relates to what has transpired here? What can people expect to see? Is this an instance where you all work collaboratively for big events and this is something comparable to that?
No, I don't, it's not like that. It's not like the special events task force where we work together. And I think I don't want to minimize what was said. And I don't want to minimize the intrusion on our autonomy because it is very different than working a special event. So that is not what we're trying to do. But I think the chief, and I'll turn to her in a second to talk to you about what she thinks is going to be most helpful to MPD.
I want to believe I answered the question a little bit earlier, but I think what's helpful to us is that we come together and we look at data, we look at intelligence when it comes to crime across our city, violent crimes as well as property crimes. And so there are other things that the federal government is also very useful for, useful in supporting us, and that is in the city is warrants, right? The execution of warrants. The U.S. Marshals holds those. This will be an opportunity for us to come together and collaborate on being able to go out and execute warrants. As we think about over the past, came in 2 years ago, 5 years prior, we looked at some of our data where we saw an increase in violent crime in certain areas across our city. We designated those areas as a homicide reduction partnership plan with some of our federal officers. What we'll do in that space is we'll enhance that presence. The other thing is that most of you know we have a nightlife task force. U Street, we have a lot of tourists, residents, individuals who come into our city on a Thursday night, Friday night, or Saturday night and enjoy the nightlife culture. We will also be able to utilize that enhanced presence in and around that area, and any other crime trends that we might see that will go forth. We have our drug-free zones where we also align our federal partners in those spaces, as well as our juvenile curfew zones.
May I just follow up quickly, Chief? So again, this morning it's being described as a federal takeover. You all are describing it as an opportunity to enhance the crime prevention strategies you have in place. What to the community who's confused about the discrepancies, where does it fall?
Well, I just articulated to you where it falls. And what I mean by that is that with respect to the two federal partners who will be working alongside me, the operations and the administrative liaison, we have a meeting scheduled for today right after this meeting, and we will be able to create an operational plan for our city that will continue to keep our city safe.
Chief Smith, I just have one question.
You just broke the rule. Maybe somebody else haven't asked the question already. Okay, is that it? Okay. All right.
Just have one question, because you did bring up data a lot. We've talked about how the data has come from MPD saying that crime has been going down. However, this morning Trump did cite a report where a sergeant was accused of messing with the crime numbers. So would you be able to respond to some of what Trump said directly this morning?
Well, I cannot respond to any internal investigations, and I think, as you know, we do not talk about personnel actions with regards to our personnel. Sam.
No problem. A two-part question.
For me?
Yes. Okay. And this is in regards to the youth. What is your professional assessment of how NPD has handled the so-called youth takeovers? And I guess the second part of my question might be more appropriate for the mayor, but.
Well, can I ask the first question, then you can ask the mayor the second question. I think when it comes to the juveniles, and I've said this, I'm very passionate about young people who are going to do great things in our city, and we have a lot of young people who are moving in that trajectory and in that space. The problem is we have a small subset of young people who do not. And I've said to parents, you need to know where your children are. We've talked about this over and over again. The mayor has enacted an executive order so that I, as the chief, can designate juvenile curfew zones around our city so that we can still give young people the opportunity to be able to be in those spaces based on what the laws and the regulations state, but we won't allow the disruptive behavior. And we've seen that time and time again. We've looked at intelligence, we've looked at data. Sometimes we look at things that are on social media to help guide our decisions. We want young people to be safe in our city. We want them to be able to enjoy the activities of our city, but we're not going to tolerate that kind of criminal activity that we've seen in the past. The juvenile curfew zone that was enacted, we've seen a decrease in our juvenile participation in those locations.
No doubt. And Madam Mayor,
yes.
If I may, how effective would it be to federalize crimes that youth commit? Because we keep hearing that from the U.S. Attorney for DC, but how effective would that be as a crime prevention strategy, in your opinion?
Well, I have had a pretty. We had a meeting with the U.S. Attorney for the Janine Pirro last week. And she does have a lot of interest in juvenile crimes and how her office can be more engaged. What I committed to her then was having some conversations around the laws that she's concerned about with members of the council, and seeing if there's any possibility of a omnibus to change that. With regard to who prosecutes or what crime she can prosecute, that's not a local law change. That would be a congressional change.
So am I hearing you correctly in saying that you would embrace the change in those three laws? IRA.
I have a position on at least 2 or 3 of those I can refer you to.
If you wouldn't mind articulating them real quick.
I would, because I'm going to get them mixed up in my head right now, but I will be happy to share that with you. Okay, I'll take a few more. Yep.
Mayor, and along with those laws that Sam was just talking about earlier today, we also heard a focus on DC's bail system, being a cashless bail system.
Mm-hmm.
Was that part of your discussion?
It's the first time I ever heard that come up in a situation with DC. DC has had a no cash, whatever you call it, cashless bail, I think since the mid-90s. So that's not anything new to our system. We do, and you know, that I was very, very focused in the last 2 years on having the council pass laws that would allow judges to hold violent offenders, those accused of a violent offense, pre-trial. And I believe that provision has led to our very substantial decrease in shootings and homicides. Yep.
I wonder if you could specifically speak to some of the concerns that U.S. Attorney Pirro has raised about her perception of lenient sentencing for youth charged with violent crimes. Do you think that's an issue? And as she suggested, potentially charging in some instances, prosecuting youth as adults, is that a potential solution, or do you agree with that?
Well, the U.S. Attorney has the ability to prosecute youth for some crimes as adults. And I think she's interested in expanding that and possibly lowering the age. What I committed to her to do was look at all of the what's allowable in the law now, the types of crimes, working with the council, and working on some changes.
So do you agree with her, though, that needs to be expanded, or do you think that is an unhelpful solution?
I don't want to say right now, because that could mean a lot of things. We want to really analyze what we think would keep us safer. What the link to crime. I will say this, and this is, some of you are new to covering us and covering these issues, but I have been in my tenure of service very pro accountability. Okay, I am an accountability mayor. If you commit a crime in the district with a gun, there has to be accountability, and that's if you are an adult or if you are a juvenile. I don't think we always have that accountability. I think what was missing from the press conference a little bit earlier, however, is what people also don't know about the district. Our prosecutors are not local, okay? They don't get elected by anybody here. They don't report to any of us. They are appointed by the president. We've also had a period of time where some of the very good police arrests that have been made were not prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So the prosecution is a federal element. Judges are appointed by the President of the United States as well. And so those are not local judges. They don't report to any of us. So that is a part of the federal system. So anytime we talk about crime in the district, it is part local and part federal that can make changes. All right, I'll take just a few more. Mark.
Mayor Bowser, the President made numerous threats about removing homeless encampments and dealing with people in the district who are experiencing homelessness. Can you talk about what preparations that you're making, that your administration is making to facilitate this, and what this, have you had any of those conversations with the White House, what that's going to look like, and where these people would go if they would be FD12 and We
really haven't gotten any more detail about the plan, about the words that he said. It wasn't referenced in the executive order that came down, so we were going to work, and I believe he had a previous executive order that also identified Attorney General Bondi as a point of contact as it relates to homelessness and such. So we'll follow up with her. Okay, last two questions. Yes.
I want to go back again to the Federal Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department. It sounds like the chief has described this person, Terry Cole, as an advisor, as a liaison, as the president, people were saying that person, this Terry Cole, is going to be in charge of the police department.
I can't really comment on that, Tom. I can only tell you what's in the executive order, and that's what controls. Yep.
Will DMHS be coordinating with law enforcement?
Can you identify yourself?
Hi, I'm with Street Sense Media.
Okay. What's your name?
Maddie Kessler.
Okay. Thanks, Maddie.
Yeah. Will DMHS be coordinating with law enforcement when it comes to increased encampment clearings Trump has asked for? And then if AG Bondi directs local law enforcement to arrest and move people experiencing homelessness out of DC, will Chief Smith comply?
Well, let me just say what MPD needs to be focused on, and it's violent crime. We simply, like our force, when the chief deploys every day and every night, is focused on people who are committing crimes in the district. So I'll leave it at that.
Mayor, one more if I could.
Okay.
You testified to Congress after the 2020 racial justice protests when there was concern that Trump might take control over MPD at that time, that would be a complete disaster and that you were worried that you're going to lose control of the city. Can you reflect on this moment today? Do you feel that you're at risk of losing control of the city? Are you worried this is going to be a complete disaster?
I'm going to work every day to make sure it's not a complete disaster. Let me put it that way. And I think that with Chief Smith's leadership and her expertise in both the federal space and the local space, we are going to do our level best to maintain, as the chief talked about, to maintain the trust that DC residents have in us. What could be a disaster is if we lose communities who won't call the police. That could be a disaster. What will be a disaster if communities won't talk to the police, if a crime has been committed and could help solve that crime. That could be a disaster. It would be a disaster if people who aren't committing crimes are antagonized into committing crimes. That would be a disaster. So we're going to work every day to get this emergency put to an end, I'll call it the so-called emergency, and continue to do our work. And at the same time, make sure that if these are like the law enforcement officers who are called, they're leaving their homes, their towns, maybe doing double shifts. If our National Guard are deployed, they're leaving their primary mission to come. We don't want their time to be wasted. We want to be strategic and work with them. But I'll end by saying this. If we know the tools that are available to the district if we are experiencing a surge in crime, and I put them in place before. It includes curfews. I've asked the council to pass emergency legislation. I've asked the Congress for additional funds. We've done all of those things. So there's nobody here, and certainly nobody who works for me, who wants to tolerate any level of crime. And I know it's frustrating sometimes to hear if I say our crime numbers have gone down, yet you've been a victim of crime. It doesn't matter to you if crime has gone down, if you were a victim or you know someone who is a victim. So we understand that. We work every day to stop crime. Thank you, everybody.
Well, there you have it. Washington, D.C. mayor have said her own piece. Okay? It's like, I mean, she came out, said what she had to say. But the commander in chief, the 45th, now the 47th president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, has federalized DC, and it's needed. So the crimes can go all the way down. So let's hear from Judge Janine Pirro here on Fox, and that would be a wrap. Here we go.
Here with more, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Janine Pirro, friend of the program. Young punks. So you can't...
Young punks.
So a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid shoots somebody. You can't do a thing? Somebody gets convicted of shooting something, they get probation and a lecture to go to college?
Yes, unfortunately, Sean, and it's good to see you again. That is my experience, and that is what the D.C. Council, which is passing the laws that pretty much control the district here. And the President Trump has rightfully declared an emergency crisis of crime and deployed the National Guard, the ATF, the DEA, the FBI, so that criminals know now that we see them, we are watching them, and we're going to make them accountable. But make no mistake, Sean, this is just the beginning. Today was, as the president called it, Liberation Day. But we are now in the process of bringing to the attention of law-abiding citizens, not just in D.C., but throughout the country, that we're not going to tolerate crime that is out of control in the nation's capital. This is the shining city on the hill that our forefathers talked about. This is the place where Ronald Reagan talked about looking up to. And in the end, it is an incredibly violent area. And, you know, whether crime is up or down, you know, they want to pat themselves on the back and say, gee, it's great. It's not as bad as it used to be. It is horrific. And the reason that that press room today, and the president commented on it, was so packed is because those reporters in that room, and it was packed to the gills, experienced crime themselves. And some of the questions had to do with that very thing. We've got an area where criminals are emboldened for a variety of reasons. They know these young gangs, or as they're called here, crews, they know that if they're 14, 15, 16, or 17, they are below the age of criminal responsibility unless they commit the crime of murder, rape one, armed robbery, or burglary in the first degree. And that means if you shoot someone and they don't die, I don't even get the case as a prosecutor. And understand, I'm not just the federal prosecutor, I'm the local DA, so to speak, here for D.C. All of these cases go to family court, the 14 through 17-year-olds. And those cases go to family court, where the focus is rehabilitation. And they talk about ice cream socials and yoga. And even if they're 19 and I get them in my court and I get a conviction, go on a bus with an illegal gun, a bus that's full of people and a family, you take a gun and you shoot someone in the chest, we get the conviction, we take it all the way, the judge says, you know, I'm going to give you probation because the D.C. Council has given him that right. And so we've got to repeal these laws of the left-leaning D.C. Council, one member of whom I just indicted recently, and we've got to make this place safe for the people in the district. And it's not just because of the kid who worked for Doe's recently, who was mugged by 12 and 13-year-olds and 14 and 15-year-olds. It's not just because of the intern who got shot and caught and killed in the middle of crossfire in a decent area of D.C., or the intern who went out for McDonald's at 10:30 and who ends up getting shot, or the kids from the Israeli embassy who get shot and killed. I mean, this is a regular course of conduct. And unless and until we get our hands on them, and unless and until we have the ability to punish them, they are emboldened and they are laughing at us.
What about other cities, violent cities, Chicago and New York City and L.A. and other cities that have defund, dismantled no bail laws?
Well, look, our murder rate is like 5 times at least higher than New York City. We've got one of the highest murder rates in the country. We were the 4th largest a couple years ago. It continues. And what we've got here are people that are not even making complaints about the quality of life crimes, whether it's shoplifting or damaging property or an attempt at a carjacking. They don't even call the police. We're not even seeing most of the crime that's occurring. And the clearance rate on homicides, Sean, is a joke. These cases are not being solved. And so the message is, if you want to commit a crime, do it in D.C., because they're not going to solve the case. Bring in someone younger to commit the crime, and we'll end up letting you go because the U.S. attorney can't get her hands on you. That's all going to change under President Trump. We're going to make D.C. safe, and we're going to make it beautiful again. And make no mistake, this president has a constitutional right to protect the people in this district and to make us safe. And until he came along, it was just going along and, oh, yeah, maybe it got a little better this year, but it's never good enough. It's never peaceful enough. And that's the problem with D.C. And these apologists who say, oh, we're not as bad as we used to be. Nonsense. It's time for us to get rid of crime and make criminals accountable. And that D.C. Council, those laws that they pass are absurd. They are defense-oriented, they are criminal-focused, and the criminals know it.
You know, we miss you here at Fox, but I know this is where your heart, your passion, and your real purpose is, and what you were born to do. We appreciate you coming back. We miss having you here at Fox. Thank you for the good job you're doing. Judge, thank you. Appreciate it.
Janine Pirro, for sure. Absolutely amazing, articulate person. And for sure, she's going to do a great job in D.C. Here we go. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth.
Capital belongs to all Americans. And starting now, we're taking it back. And that's the angle. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was given the tall order of handling this, and he's here with me exclusively. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us tonight. So the president called this a public safety emergency, and you said we're going to start seeing the National Guard this week. Tell us more.
This week and in coming weeks. And we're going to work right alongside our law enforcement partners as force multipliers. This is what the American people voted for, Laura. This is what the common sense, clarity, strength. I hadn't heard that story from President Trump before, the story he told about his father, that he told him, hey, son, if you look at the front door of a restaurant and it's dirty, then I bet the kitchen, you can count on the fact that the kitchen is too. And I sat there thinking that's exactly right. If our capital city is a mess, if we can't control our capital city, then what does the rest of the country look like? And what signals does the rest of the country take from that? So just like we did in Los Angeles, alongside our federal law, we took a lot of criticism for 4,000 troops, 700 Marines. You know what we didn't get? There was no summer of love in 2020. In 2025, there was a summer of law enforcement. And we quelled the protests of the attacks on ICE officers. We're going to help get D.C. under control by working with local officials who have been federalized, with federal officials who are coming in. The D.C. Guard's proud to be a part of it. Other states will contribute this week going into the weeks to come. And whatever's needed, the DOD will provide to make sure this is a safe city for those who live here, for those that work here, and the Americans who want to come visit here and love our capital city.
The question of martial law keeps getting raised by the left, that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, they want to impose martial law as authoritarians would. To that you say?
To that I say, look at Los Angeles. They said the exact same thing. Oh, look, 4,000 troops, California National Guard. Oh, look, the Marines. You can't put in the Marines. What? They were the troops available to ensure that we de-escalated the situation and didn't allow other lawbreakers to say, look, it's wide open. We can do whatever we want in these sanctuary cities. I was told, oh, you're going to lock up political opponents. You're going to go after Democrats, yada, yada. It's the same stuff every time, mischaracterizing our intentions. The intentions of this president is to establish law and order using legal and lawful and constitutional means, which he completely has. And you know what? You know why they don't like him? He's got the guts to do it. He's got the guts to say, I'm going to federalize the police that don't work. I'm going to bring in the National Guard. I'm going to bring in federal marshals. I'm going to bring in the park police.
How long will that be?
Control the,
How
who
long
knows? How long? What is the?
Well, it costs money, right?
Sure, it does.
It costs money, and the question is, are you there for a year? Are you there for 6 months? And when the troops pull out, what happens
I would
then?
call this conditions-based. I would say it's a situation where we're here to support law enforcement. And the more we can free them up to do their job, the more effective they can be, the more we can work. I mean, this isn't my realm, but the justice system to make sure people who are arrested are actually locked up. That's why the president's talking about cashless bail in sanctuary cities. If you're illegal here in D.C., that's going to be a problem. So all of these things that apply to law and order are front and center for us. And I don't know, weeks, months, what will it take? That's the president's call. But we're going to be there for him to execute as swiftly as possible.
Will the National Guard be detaining Americans on American soil?
Under Title 32, which is the authorization they'll be using, they have broad latitude, but they're not going to be involved in law enforcement functions. They will be standing right alongside our federal agents like they were in Los Angeles. They're going to be proactive. If you take an action or a shot at them, there will be a consequence. So they're going to be strong.
So if a crime is being committed, in other words, and a National Guardsman sees a crime being committed, then what?
They can come alongside and assist law enforcement.
What if law enforcement isn't on that corner?
I will have their back to ensure they can take the necessary action to protect citizens of D.C. and to protect themselves. So there's no rogue law enforcement going on from the National Guard, but there's also the application of common sense. We're not going to have National Guardsmen sitting there like this, seeing a crime committed and not do something about it. You can help somebody, interdict, temporarily detain like we did in Los Angeles, and hand over to law enforcement. Those are the types of things the National Guard can be trained to do.
Do you guys have buy-in from any local officials in D.C.? I'm not saying you need it, but you can see where it would be helpful. Faith-based leaders, community leaders. Bowser, I think, is trying to walk a line there. She's probably the best mayor D.C. has had, which people think, how are you saying that? Because she's actually better than, I think, most mayors for the last 25 years in D.C.
I think she's walking a line of, as we talked about a little bit before the show, she understands the obvious. She understands the citizens of D.C. are sick of this kind of environment. And I think they're waiting for, if given an opportunity to resist the thugs and the gangs and the criminals and the drug dealers, they want the alternative. So I think the vast majority of D.C. folks, they may not want to say it, especially if they're left of center, but under their breath and quietly, they would welcome a peaceful city where their friends and families can come visit and be safe.
And the National Guard going to be picking up these tents? So the homeless tents are all over the city. They're on K Street Tunnel. There are some dotting along the area here. There were more before. Some of them have been cleared out. Well, what about those?
We're working with the marshals and alongside them, alongside Park Police, alongside everybody else. Wherever they need the National Guard to assist, we're happy to be there.
Do you know where the homeless people are going to go?
That's not really my lane. Yeah. Our job is to stand alongside law enforcement. We'll do that.
Other really interesting news over the weekend was the news about the cartels in Mexico. The Sinaloa crime cartel and many others have wreaked havoc on the United States. You covered it when you were a host on Fox. You see it up close and personal now. Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, is saying this is not welcome in our country. You know, you kind of see what she has to do perhaps there as well. What is your target, and how deep into Mexico do you intend to go?
Well, we're not going to comment on any of the reporting from the New York Times. Sorry. I wish they had a little bit more commitment and patriotism to the country about what they report on a whole slew of levels.
Yeah, saying Trump secretly signed a directive to go into Mexico.
Also, that material like that, true or not, should never be released. Ultimately, the president ran on designating these organizations as foreign terrorist organizations. We spent 20 years battling foreign terrorists in other countries. Now we've got them in our own hemisphere, poisoning our people with drugs, with gangs, with violence, with human trafficking. President Trump has said enough is enough. We've sealed it at the border. I mean, the military's down at the border with CBP and ICE, sealing that. We have, and we've come alongside them. Now, where appropriate, when given the opportunity, when it makes sense, at the directive of the president, we will take action to defend the American people.
Does that mean that you foresee U.S. troops in Mexico in some way, shape, or form? Or are you thinking drone attacks, air attacks? What do you think?
I can't reveal anything, but I'm not tipping my hand that there will be U.S. troops in Mexico. That's not what I'm saying.
But are you worried that now the cartels are just moving everything around, that they know that there's a target on their back? They're just like hiding everything, however they do that?
We're watching. We know a little bit more than they think we might know about them. We've spent a lot of attention watching them. We're focused on this. It's a presidential priority. It's our priority. We're working with federal partners to identify that all across the Western Hemisphere. This is something we're not lying down anymore. If you're trafficking in drugs, you're trafficking in people, you're trafficking in violence that affect the American people, that's unacceptable, and the Defense Department's going to be a part of solving that.
China on its end, and then the U.S. government on the Mexico side. Friday. Big day in Alaska. President Trump meets with Vladimir Putin, but We understand that Volodymyr Zelensky will not be there, but the president said he would tell him how the meeting went. That's been criticized by those who, kind of want to keep this war going indefinitely. But tell us what the posture is now. I know you don't want to get ahead of the president, but ultimately, what would look like something close to success here?
Well, nobody else could have created the conditions that lead to a meeting like this.
Hasn't been there since 2015. Putin in the United States.
Nope. And certainly under Joe Biden, the violence raged, the war raged, and Putin never took him serious enough to even consider a meeting. So already President Trump has changed the game. He's created the conditions for a possible negotiated settlement, which is his goal from the beginning at a very complex battlefield. I don't think Vladimir Putin would be meeting unless he's felt that heat. And I think there's a chance. And the president's laid out the parameters, and so is Steve Witkoff and others who are in the. We're in the strength side of the peace through strength business, but on the negotiating side, there's going to be, could be land swaps. There's going to be concessions. No one's going to be happy, but if anybody can do it, it's going to be President Trump.
Are you going to be there?
I don't know. We'll see what my calendar looks like. Possibly.
Well, can you call us when you find out the information, please?
We'll know.
Is there a precedent that you all are worried about setting here with this idea of an American urged land swap, as the president described it? I mean, everyone knows the history of Ukraine and Russia. Mm-hmm. The eastern part of Ukraine is much more Russian ethnic. The western side has more of a Ukrainian history and so forth. But Vladimir Putin loves Kiev. That's the cradle of the Ukrainian, the Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church. So he loves Kiev. But are you worried about a precedent-setting moment here that would not be great for future conflicts?
No, because this is not a war of President Trump's making. He ran to say, I want to end this war. He didn't cause this. The weakness of previous administrations, Obama and Biden, caused this. President Trump came in to say, I'm going to make peace. It makes nobody happy, but it ends a senseless war with thousands of people killed every week, and he wants to stop it.
Okay. I have a friend who just got through OCS as a Marine, went to a very great university, and so he told me all about basic training and how hard it was. But now I understand you're thinking about bringing back shark attacks to basic training. Mm-hmm. That's when drill sergeants get into the faces of recruits. We all saw that in the movies. I love those moments. But are you bringing that back?
Of course. Why did we ever get rid of it in the first place?
I don't know. It looks cool to me.
If you want a strong, tough military, why do you get softer at the beginning? The tactics drill sergeants used in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they forged generations of young Americans who went and fought wars courageously. Now we're handing out, in the past, we're handing out stress cards. Are you too stressed? Do you need some counseling for that?
Therapy animals.
No, we're going to flip your bunk, and we're going to shark attack, and we're going to forge a young man or a young woman into a brave American willing to fight on behalf of all of us. So we are making basic training great again by putting the power back in the hands of drill sergeants. Just like staff sergeants, just like company commanders, just like battalion commanders, we're making it possible to actually command decisively in the military, which is how you close with and destroy your enemy. We lost track of the basics, Laura, and we're restoring the basics at the Defense Department, maybe soon to be the War Department, and we're going to get after it.
It used to be the War Department, the Department of War. But after World War II, that changed. We're on defensive, it's Defense Department. We might get a change of name?
Well, that's up to the President of the United States, but stay tuned. We'll see.
I've always loved the War Department better than the Defense Department. Mr. Secretary.
Okay, now Pete Hegseth doing what he does best. He's been a Fox presenter for a long time, so he knows how to handle himself when it comes to speaking events like this or interviews like this. So shout out to Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, soon to be Secretary of War, like you heard from him. Now, you guys, it is 3:21 a.m. and of course today's date is the 12th of August 2025. All right. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go on ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you wish to join the channel membership, it is $4.99. And God is the greatest. This is the United States of America. This is not the divided state. So whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, it doesn't really matter. What matters is stay united, okay? Everybody come on together. It is the United States, country before party. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams and believe in Almighty God. God is the greatest. I got to give a shout out to the fathers who work hard every day to pay their bills, to take care of their families, their kids and spouse. God bless you, fathers. It's hard, but you do what you have to do every single day for your family. So shout out to the fathers. And of course, shout out to the mothers as well. They've been doing a great job for centuries now. Shout out to law enforcement officers. Shout out to Ice Baby. Shout out to the veterans. Shout out to military personnel. Without you guys, there would be no homeland. I got to give a shout out to our esteemed members, Dr. Luke, the GOAT. Thank you so much, the GOAT. Shout out to CRXR. God bless you, CRXR. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Ingraham. Shout out to Ringmaster. Shout out to Sandra. God bless you guys. Of course, shout out to the moderators. Good Jeans, C. Shelley. Shout out to the Bucket Master Busky. Shout out to Jet MVP. Shout out to Corey. God bless you. Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. You guys are awesome. Stay blessed, man. Don't forget to be nice, be kind to your fellow brothers and sisters, because you just never know what people are going through. Be kind, all right? People are these close. These people are going through a lot. I'm telling you, we are all going through a lot. So just take a deep breath, relax, okay? And let God be your strength, because life can be hard, but let God be your strength, okay? Be nice to people, all right? Some people are one paycheck away from being homeless. I'm telling you guys, it's hard out here for a lot of people. So be nice to people, all right? If you can help people. If you can't, pray for them, okay? Now, you guys are awesome. Don't forget to subscribe. Double tap your screen. I love you guys. It is your boy Genesis. I love the United States. That's why I do this show, streaming stuff like this. So you guys are awesome. I'm sure you love the United States. That's why you're here as well. So you guys have a good time. Good night. It is your boy Genesis, and you are currently tuned into the Genesis Show. And I am signing out. Oh, wait. I cannot forget Terry. Did I just forget Terry? Terry, did I just forget you? Terry Vinings? There's no way I'm going to just end up without not talking about Terry Vinings. Come on, yo. Terry Vinings. Thank you. See y'all soon.